An unexpected meeting. The tension in the room was palpable, almost tangible, and the whispers reverberated against the metallic walls. In a hidden conference hall deep within the heart of the Zantor Megasphere, a structure that embraced the sun of the Xarxis system, delegates from the most extreme worlds in the galaxy gathered. Creatures of varied shapes and deadly appearances watched a single point on the holographic screen in the center. Gorak, the imposing leader of the Carthans, frowned, visibly unsettled by what he was seeing. That human shouldn't even be alive, he muttered, squinting in disbelief. How could that frail creature survive there? Surrounded by beings evolved to endure planets that would annihilate most life, the Carthans believed they understood the pinnacle of resilience. And yet, on the holographic screen, a solitary human walked calmly under the blistering heat of an unknown desert, with 2 stars blazing like furnaces in the sky. But what did this human have? Why was he there? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, and the silence in the room was thick with a blend of disdain and curiosity. Why doesn't he fall apart? No scales, no claws, no venom, just bones, murmured Iraq, a robust Carthan, scarred across his face. How does he survive? For all the Carthans' innate wildness, something there seemed beyond their understanding. The Carthans were a species forged by evolution to withstand toxic atmospheres and injuries that would obliterate any other species. Yet, before this scene, a strange discomfort grew, challenging the supposed superiority they had always upheld, until Dravik, the oldest and most experienced Carthan scientist, cleared his throat, visibly disturbed. These humans, they don't just survive on their world, they thrive. His words caused a silent stir, and Gorak, the Carthan leader, directed his severe gaze toward Dravik. Explain. I know it's difficult to accept, but the data shows that Earth, their world, is an anomaly in terms of hostile environments. Floods, deserts, eruptions, uncontrollable temperatures. Nothing there seems willing to cooperate, Dravik explained, barely containing his astonishment. But what shocked the Carthans wasn't that Earth was hostile, but that humans, against all logic, chose to challenge these environments for pleasure. They climb icy mountains, traverse furious seas, even venture into polar regions, and, apparently, all this for entertainment. The word entertainment was met with nervous laughter and skeptical glances. To the Carthans, such an idea was absurd. They had for millennia occupied Zantor, a colossal structure built to protect entire solar systems from any destructive cosmic force. Zantor wasn't a planet, it was a fortress, a shell shielding an entire population. And they lived there, guarded against all dangers. Why then would those fragile beings choose to defy death for something so trivial? Iraq shook his head, still skeptical. They must be lying. It's ridiculous to think someone would seek danger voluntarily. But Dravik insisted. There is something more about them, something that goes beyond logic. Humans don't just dominate their predators, they make allies of them. They live with creatures that on any other planet would be lethal. How could these beings so weak, so common, have become the masters of their environment? They weren't endowed with claws, venom, or any natural armor, and yet they managed to thrive. What was the secret behind this capacity? The question hung, sharp, among the delegates. Then, the doors of the room slid open quietly. All eyes turned as the human ambassador entered, alone, without any protective equipment. Gorak observed him with a mixture of disdain and fascination. There was that human, showing no apparent sign of power, yet something profoundly unsettling emanated from his presence. "Gentlemen," the ambassador said, his voice calm and direct, causing immediate silence. He wasn't using a translator. He spoke the Carthan language fluently, a feat that would take years even for seasoned diplomats. The Carthans fell silent, assessing him, wary. Iraq, with narrowed eyes, leaned forward, mocking. "You're lucky we allowed you here, human. We don't usually waste time with soft-skinned creatures." But the human merely smiled, as if he had heard it before. "I believe that's true," he replied serenely, his voice devoid of fear. "Just as I imagine few species last long enough to have this conversation with you." Silence settled over the room, heavy, until Dravik, with his ever-present scientific curiosity, intervened. "Tell us, human, how can your kind withstand a world like yours? Without armor, without venom or claws? How do you survive?" The human held his gaze, as though the answer was obvious. "We adapt. We face situations with what we have. We think. And when necessary, we fight." But what really made these humans such adaptable, nearly indestructible beings in the eyes of the Carthans? Strength without form. The ambassador's words lingered in the minds of the Carthans, provoking an unsettling dissonance. Flexible, adaptable strength. This was against everything they had ever believed. The concept of strength to them was solid, unyielding. It was what sustained their culture and ensured their supremacy for ages. And there was that human, a being whose visible fragility belied a quiet yet undeniable power. Gorak felt the need for a test, a real challenge. Something within him demanded to see this human from a new perspective, to discover what he was truly capable of. With an imperceptible gesture, he signaled one of the younger warriors present, Krar, who understood the message. Krar, an intimidating figure even among the Carthans, was known for his skill and ferocity. If that human was truly special, he would have to prove it here, before everyone. The young warrior stepped forward, his imposing silhouette and piercing gaze fixed on the ambassador. "We've heard your words, human," Krar said, his voice laced with disdain and expectation. "But words prove nothing. Let's see if you can survive a true test of strength." The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to the human ambassador. He maintained a serene expression without a hint of fear or hesitation. "I didn't come here to prove anything, but if that's what you wish..." He let the sentence hang, a glint of challenge in his gaze. It was an implicit acceptance. Gorak watched closely. The ambassador was shrewd, that much was evident. But at stake was more than a simple demonstration of skill. It was a clash between philosophies, between the Carthans' unyielding strength and human adaptability. Which would ultimately hold true value? The Carthan warriors made space in the center of the room, forming a circle, a rite of challenge. Krar stepped into the center, his sharp gaze fixed on the human, ready to attack. Beside him, the ambassador shrugged off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, an almost casual gesture, as if he were preparing for a simple conversation, not a battle with a warrior from another species. Krar wasted no time. He advanced with surprising speed for someone his size, muscular arms poised to grab and crush. But in the next moment, the human moved with speed and precision, dodging with an almost impossible lightness. The young Carthan warrior hesitated, momentarily thrown off balance by the ease with which the human avoided his attack. How was it possible that a being without armor, or any apparent protection, could so easily evade a direct attack from a Carthan? Krar advanced again, this time more cautiously, but the result was the same. The human dodged, every movement exact, calculated, as if he anticipated every attack before Krar even decided to act. It was almost like a dance, a series of precise movements far beyond mere survival instinct. The ambassador's agility was accompanied by an irritating calm that began to provoke murmurs of surprise among the Carthans. The challenge then became something more. Frustrated, Krar threw a direct punch, a brutal force capable of crushing metal, but the human didn't just dodge. He grabbed the Carthan's wrist, using the warrior's own weight to throw him to the ground with an unexpected motion. Silence blanketed the room. There, before them, the human had defeated the young Carthan warrior, using his own strength and impetuousness against him. The ambassador stepped back, allowing Krar to stand. His gaze, though firm, bore no hint of victory or provocation. It was almost compassionate. "I told you that adaptability is also a strength, and knowing when and how to respond is part of it," he declared, almost as if teaching a lesson. Dravik, the scientist, was speechless, his expression astonished. He approached the ambassador, intrigued. "What was that?" he asked, unable to hide his amazement. "How did you anticipate the attacks?" The ambassador looked at him, a faint smile on his face. "Training. We humans learn to observe and analyze. We don't have your strength, but we have something as valuable: perception and adaptability. Rather than fighting with brute force, we observe and learn from our opponent." The room remained silent, the Carthans processing the scene they had just witnessed. What did this calculated adaptability truly mean? Were they really facing something they had never encountered before? Gorak, who had watched everything attentively, stepped forward, his gaze serious and laden with a new awareness. "This kind of strength is strange to us, human," he admitted, his voice deep. "But still, you speak of a world that shapes beings with unmatched resilience. Yet, you said there are things even beyond your capacity. How do you deal with what is out of your control?" The ambassador raised his eyes to Gorak, seeming to ponder the question. "We work together," he replied, his voice resonating with something deeper. "There are things we can't face alone, so we form alliances. Instead of trying to overcome everything on our own, we trust in others, combine abilities. We don't have your physical strength, but we possess collective strength, something that makes us strong in a different way." The words weighed heavily in the room, reaching each Carthan in a unique way. Could the answer really be there, something the Carthans had never considered? Could unity be a strength greater than any armor or claw? Collective strength and the awakening of a new perspective. The Carthans kept their eyes fixed on the human ambassador, trying to grasp the true meaning of his words. Collective strength. For a species that valued self-reliance above all, seeing dependence on others as a weakness, the idea of trusting allies seemed absurd. Gorak, the leader, took a deep breath before speaking. "We Carthans have never depended on alliances to survive. Our own code of strength teaches us to face and dominate any threat. If your species is so fragile, why haven't you been destroyed long ago by more powerful species?" There was a hint of scorn in the question, but also a touch of genuine curiosity. The ambassador observed Gorak for a moment, his eyes expressing a calm seriousness before he answered. "Because we believe there is strength in recognizing our limits and, more importantly, in overcoming them together. In a world that doesn't forgive failure, learning to trust others and build relationships is more than a strategy. It's a survival necessity." The ambassador's words felt strange and unsettling, a philosophy completely opposed to the Carthans. Dravik, the scientist, cast a furtive glance at Gorak, considering the validity of the statement. "If what you say is true, human, then why haven't you used this collective strength to dominate other worlds? Why haven't you conquered the galaxy with this unity?" The ambassador tilted his head, a slight smile forming on his lips. "We don't need to. For us, strength isn't measured by the number of conquests. Our greatest strength lies in our ability to adapt and coexist. We've learned that alliances make us not only stronger, but more resilient, and at the same time, we respect differences without the need to subjugate them." This concept of coexistence, of forces that combined instead of confronting, was an idea the Carthans had never considered. To them, every battle was a matter of survival, a test where the weaker perished. But the humans spoke of a different way of seeing the universe, of facing challenges beyond simple supremacy. Could there be another path, one the Carthans had yet to explore? Gorak leaned forward slightly, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "And you believe we could learn something from you? That this unity would make us stronger?" The ambassador nodded. "I believe that strength without flexibility eventually becomes a weakness. Your Zantor Megasphere is an example of monumental power, but it is also a structure that relies entirely on the stability of a single star. What would happen if a natural catastrophe or an external force destabilized it?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air, unanswered. The Carthans fell silent, each reflecting on the challenge those words presented. They had built Zantor to be impregnable, an indestructible fortress, but in a way, it also meant they were bound to this structure. And if, as the humans suggested, something beyond their control happened, what would they do? How could they survive if the very foundation of their civilization were shaken? Dravik, increasingly restless with these new ideas, felt compelled to question the human further. Then, how would you face something like that? If your strength lies in adaptation and cooperation, how would you deal with an uncontrollable catastrophe? The ambassador raised his gaze, responding with determined calm. "Throughout our history, we've faced events that threatened our existence. Epidemics, climate change, wars, and each time, we learned to survive not by isolating our strength, but by broadening it. We don't consolidate everything into a single structure or ideology. We diversify our ways of living, spread our knowledge, and form alliances. That is our weapon, the ability to disperse and transform. The ambassador's words resonated through the room, reaching the core of each Carthan present. Gorak looked around, noticing the introspective expressions on the faces of his warriors and scientists. Could they really be limiting themselves by relying solely on their own strength? What if true resilience lay in a new approach, one that allowed for growth rather than exclusively self-protection? The Carthan leader stood up, his posture still imposing, but his tone now reflected a kind of silent respect. You've given us much to think about, human. Our civilization was built on the belief that individual strength is the path to survival, but perhaps it's time to consider what it truly means to be strong, and if there is a way to expand that strength. The human ambassador nodded, understanding the importance of that statement. I'm not here to change who you are. I'm here to propose an alternative, to show that adaptability and cooperation can open new paths. Instead of guarding against the universe, you can learn to expand your strength with it. As these words echoed, a respectful and unexpected silence filled the room. For the first time, the Carthans saw a new horizon, a glimpse of possibilities that would once have seemed absurd, a path that did not threaten their identity, but expanded it, giving them the chance to explore a power that could exist in unity, not just brute strength. Finally, Gorak raised his hand in a gesture that, among the Carthans, symbolized rare acknowledgement. Perhaps, human, there is more to learn than we realized. You have shown us that strength exists in forms we do not yet understand. You have earned our respect. The human ambassador inclined his head, accepting the gesture with dignity, without triumph. Perhaps we all have something to learn, and perhaps, together, we can achieve a strength greater than we ever imagined. The tension slowly dissipated, giving way to a newfound and unexpected understanding. And so, for the first time, the Carthan leader opened the door to a future where strength and unity were not contradictory ideas, but parts of the same essence. The unlikely alliance? The human ambassador let his words hang in the air like a bridge extended between two worlds that, until then, had never imagined joining forces. The Carthans, fierce and proud, stood on the brink of a decision that, though subtle, could alter the destiny of their civilization. Gorak, their leader, understood the weight of that moment. Were the Carthans truly ready to accept that strength could go beyond mere individual survival? The silence was broken by Krar, the young warrior who had challenged the ambassador earlier. He approached, now without his initial hostility, his eyes fixed on the human. "If all of this is true," he began, choosing his words carefully, "then we Carthans have something to learn from you. But tell me, human, what do you expect to gain from this alliance?" The ambassador smiled, but his gaze was serious. "We're not seeking material gain or dominance over others. What we seek is mutual understanding, shared learning. In a vast and unpredictable universe, alliances aren't a burden. They are an opportunity to grow and expand our own vision of what's possible, and perhaps to protect ourselves from threats we haven't even imagined yet." Dravik, the scientist, whose mind had already been sparked by the ambassador's ideas, intervened, still somewhat skeptical. "Are you suggesting that there are threats even we, with all our strength and technology, wouldn't be able to face alone?" The human nodded, his expression grave. "The universe is vast and mysterious, Dravik. There are forces that transcend any known technology, and there are species out there as powerful as they are unpredictable. One moment, they may be allies, the next, enemies. If we isolate ourselves, we will eventually be surpassed, overtaken by the unknown." The ambassador's words echoed like a warning, an admonition that made even the most skeptical question themselves. Were the Carthans truly prepared to face any adversity alone? Gorak looked at the human with a new gaze, as if he were seeing for the first time the potential in something he had always despised: cooperation. He walked slowly to the center of the room, where the ambassador still stood firm, and then raised his hand in a rare and powerful gesture, an offer of respect and alliance. "Human," Gorak began, his strong voice resonating within the metal walls of the Megasphere. "Today, for the first time, the Carthans recognize the strength that exists in other forms beyond our own. You've shown us that unity does not have to mean weakness, but rather an expansion of our capacity to endure and thrive. If it's true that there are threats even we cannot face alone, then perhaps it's time to expand our strength at your side." The ambassador accepted the gesture with dignity, gripping Gorak's hand firmly. "May this alliance make us stronger than we have ever been," he replied, his eyes reflecting the gravity of the moment. The alliance was formed. The Carthans, known for their relentless self-sufficiency, were ready to explore a new era of cooperation with humans. And, as the doors of the conference room closed, each of them knew that something irrevocable had begun. As he left the Zantor Megasphere, the human ambassador felt the weight of the responsibility he carried. Would the union between humans and Carthans truly withstand the challenges that lurked in the shadows of the universe? The coming eras would test this alliance in ways no one could predict. But at that moment, for the first time in history, two civilizations that once saw themselves as so different were united by a force greater than any armor or weapon. Together, they would face the universe, with all it had to offer, from wonders to mysteries. And as the stars continued their course, both peoples prepared for the reality that this new era might bring. For the Carthans, a fundamental transformation. For the humans, confirmation that strength, after all, could be something far more vast than anyone had ever imagined.